So to those of you who don't know me, I'm Davina. I'm actually from this beautiful island of Aruba. I'm a lawyer by background. I worked as a corporate and finance lawyer for about 10 years across Amsterdam, Aruba, and New York. So I'm sure you guys are asking yourselves, and I'm sure my parents are asking themselves as well, why they paid all these years of law school. Why am I standing here to talk about the future of innovative spaces? I guess the main reason is that 3 years ago, I took a leap to the more entrepreneurial side of things and co-founded WRE. It's a boutique real estate investment and development firm that is focusing on unconventional real estate projects, either with cultural and/or community impact usually. So these 3 years, it's become very clear to me that more and more of us, our generation specifically, we're demanding improvements in the spaces that we live in, the spaces that we work in, the spaces that we move in, and the spaces that we generally spend time in. So what do I mean with innovative spaces? Not only do I mean creating spaces that are technologically creative, new, functional, or advanced, but also for our generation, innovation is almost becoming synonymous with sustainable. We want anything new to be sustainable. Think about reusable water bottles, electric cars, paper straws, vegan sneakers. This is what I want to call today the green or the environmental side of sustainability. But perhaps equally important in 2019 is the human or the cultural side of sustainability. Our generation cares not only about reducing energy costs and environmental impact, but we also want spaces that increase social experiences. Think about improving the way that we integrate wellness, education, culture, arts, and music in our daily lives. We care a lot about community building and human interaction. And this is what I want to focus on today, how this change and our human behavior is changing the way that we're influencing space innovation. This change that I'm trying to describe is also evidenced in the way that we travel nowadays. We're traveling looking for experience rather than wanting to go to established destinations. We want to travel with purpose. For instance, Airbnb in 2016 launched their Experiences Tour, where they added social impact programs of which 100% of the fees go to nonprofits and local entrepreneurs that you would visit on these tours. Another interesting development in the human sustainability field is the increased focus on wellness. Real estate spaces, especially in big cities, office, residential buildings, are offering more spaces that can be used for yoga, meditation, boutique fitness, sound healing, you name it. Also, wellness travel has become increasingly important, and this translates into another really important form of real estate: hotels. Wellness travelers have created a massive $639 billion industry over the last couple of years, according to the 2018 Wellness Tourism Economy Study. So, innovative spaces means creating new, functional spaces which improve the social welfare. Through not only technology, but also through culture, through art, through well-being, and more. In terms of real estate, you can think about spaces like Soho House, WeWork, and other co-working spaces. In Aruba, for example, we have also the CoLab workspace, which creates the same type of environment that WeWork does. But there's also a very interesting new disruptive market phenomenon going on, especially in New York and Silicon Valley. It's co-living spaces. Co-living refers to houses, complexes that apply the sharing economy to apartments. It's basically the Uberization of apartments. You're basically only responsible for your room. And they're super luxurious buildings. They offer furnished private or semi-private bedrooms with shared communal spaces like kitchens, common areas, and bathrooms. It works well because you don't have the problems that you used to have when you just get a couple of people that you know to move in together, because cleaning is usually included in these spaces. So you're reducing the usual roommate drama that you would normally see. This is obviously drastically changing the rental markets in big cities, not only because you're removing the real estate agent in certain respects because you don't need them anymore, but also pricing has been influenced a lot. And a lot of buildings are being converted into co-living spaces rather than just the ones that are coming up new. Besides real estate, and when I say real estate, I'm referring to the bricks and mortar, I'll also briefly touch upon spaces like cities and communities later on. So I want to turn back to what we at WRE consider to be important. The first thing that we always want to focus on is to maintain historical heritage in projects that we do. What do I mean by that? We try to find rare landmarks to keep the historical heritage as much as possible. For example, this is a building that we were going to develop last year. Unfortunately, it didn't happen because there were illegal tenants living in the building and the seller couldn't deliver the building vacant. But the building was originally a textile production facility that was built in the 30s. And you can see on the picture, the building has striking, simple structures, and we would have kept the structure intact. The lobby was going to be a little modern art sculpture museum, and on the roof we would have done a little garden to provide for the farm-to-table restaurant downstairs. So on the retaining the cultural or historical heritage, as I like to call this principle, you can also see some examples in Aruba. I think it's an amazing thing that they've done to a lot of these buildings, and I still, when you drive around, you see a lot of opportunities out there, and I hope that it's something that's going to be promoted more. I think instead of buying buildings and tearing them down and building from scratch and building only modern buildings, I think it would be amazing to have developers also look into how to retain the cultural heritage and transform these buildings into new things. The second principle that we always want to try to adhere to is to make sure that the architecture, design, and layout are adjusted to accommodate the natural landscape and the surroundings. This is also referred to as the low-impact luxury. Destinations like Bali, Costa Rica, I think also Chile and Tulum and other places that have a lot of eco-friendly hotels are good examples. One of my favorite examples of low-impact luxury, and I'm sure some of you have seen this house on the World's Most Extraordinary Homes on Netflix, is the Te Kaitaka in New Zealand. As you can see, the design and layout blend in with the surroundings, in a way that it's almost not even intrusive on the space. So the 3-0 concept is also another concept that I think that developers, not only in Aruba but around the world, should try to adhere to more and more as we talk about sustainability. The first 0 is 0 kilometers, which asks us to use local construction materials and local construction skills as much as possible. The second 0 is 0 carbon dioxide, which asks us to prioritize energy management and lower emissions. And the third one is 0 waste, which is asking us to recycle and introduce life cycle management into the building process. Now I want to turn to the first project that I worked on with WRE. It's been 3 years in the making. The location, I want to zoom in. It's in Bushwick, which is in Brooklyn. It's right there somewhere, yes. So it was a 40,000 square feet property with 2 warehouses. It used to be a steel factory and a waste management company in an area that is and largely remains heavily industrialized. We had to convert the use from heavy industry, which employed about 10 people, I think, to an event venue that holds up to 8,000, sometimes 10,000 attendees, depends on the format, and more than 300 employees. We had to bring the buildings in compliance with all the applicable building codes, so bracing, steel reinforcement. We had to build like almost 300 bathrooms, because obviously all of a sudden we were going from 10 workers to 8,000 people. We had to remove asbestos. I think we have about 80 exit signs and had to build in a lot of egress. So a lot of landscaping as well. I'm gonna show the bird's eye view. So every summer, the outdoor space is what the venue is most known for. It's called the Brooklyn Mirage. The entire thing is Avant Gardner, which Gardner is the name of the street, so we derived it from there. But in the summer, on the middle part, we basically build a Mirage, and it's an event venue that can be used for anything culturally, music, arts. We even host weddings and fashion shows, job fairs, you name it. So we use, to build up the Mirage, it looks like a building, you're gonna see soon, but we use a very, very innovative technique. We do scaffolding, cladding, and paint to create what resembles a building, but in reality is not. So here we try to apply the 3-0 concept as much as possible. We use mostly companies that are based in Brooklyn, workers that are based in Brooklyn. Obviously we are not building a building, so we're using very little carbon dioxide, and we try to we recycle the materials every year. I'm gonna play a little video of the build so you guys can have an idea of what it looks like. This is the winterization, so we're actually turning the Mirage into a little tent. That's what it looks like. It looks like a building, but it's not. So the other thing that we have is, I already went into it. I wanted to stop a little bit, but as you can see, and this is just to show the mapping that we use outside. On the previous slide, you can also see when we used the venue for a wedding. It's the picture on the left side. The couple actually put up videos, and let's go to the next one so it's not, yeah. The couple actually put videos and pictures of their relationship together on the entire mapping outdoors. It was actually pretty cool. It was a wedding of like 1,000 people. So the real estate investment case for Avant Gardner was based on the gentrification of the area, which is another important development when we talk about innovation, especially in New York. Bushwick is, if you guys have not been, it's the area in New York where you have all the street graffiti and art. A lot of artists started moving there, obviously, because rent is cheaper. So that's how the area gentrified. So Avant Gardner basically accelerated the gentrification process, and it had a transformative impact on the surrounding area, and is benefiting the economy in the area a lot. There's a lot of foot traffic, a lot of awareness, a lot of marketability in the area right now because the venue exists. We're bringing in every weekend 10 to 20,000 of people, so there are coffee shops and juice bars and everything coming up like crazy everywhere. We're also working with the New York City Parks Department, and we're using the National Tree Calculator to plant trees in the immediate neighborhood. So all in all, it was a great experiment to bring in a lot of these human interaction and community type aspects that I was talking about before, that shows how we want to focus on the human and sustainability instead of only the environmental sustainability. Turning away from real estate, I want to briefly touch upon cities and communities. And when we look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you can also see the importance of it, come back in presentations and in what they are considering to be important. So I'll focus only on 9 and 10, since these are the only ones that are relevant. The first one is asking us to invest in infrastructure, fostering sustainable growth development, and goal 11 is basically asking us to promote sound urban planning, sustainable building, green spaces, and sustainable lifestyles. I'm merely mentioning these to illustrate the importance of sustainability when we talk about space innovation in general and in communities and cities, and not just real estate. So I want to talk about one city, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to hear more about Burning Man later on. But the reason I want to talk about it now is because of the urban planning aspect of it. So this guy that you're seeing is Paul Romer. He's the 2018 Nobel Prize winner for economics and is a former chief economist of World Bank. 2 years ago, he talked at World Bank about urban planning and mentioned Black Rock City, which is the house of Burning Man, to those that don't know. And this year, he actually went to investigate whether Black Rock City could be a model for urban planning. This article that I read about this appeared in the New York Times on September 5th, to those interested in reading it. So I never noticed this, but when you look at the Burning Man street grid, you'll see that the roads narrow when they approach small plazas around the city. And all the streets are exactly 40 feet wide. And the plazas basically steer people into common gathering places. Also, when you look at the map of Manhattan that was drawn in 1818, you can see that it has a similar structure. And basically the reason why Paul Romer was drawing this comparison is because by 2050, developing world cities are going to gain about 2.3 billion people, and many of them which will move to makeshift settlements right outside of cities. So basically the urbanized land area in most big cities in the developing world is going to almost triple. So he's basically arguing that we should try to do what Burning Man does every year with this. They grow 70,000 people in a week. So he's trying to draw the comparison and say that we should basically do the same thing as is done there. You stake out the street grid, you separate the public from the private spaces, and then you leave room for what's to come. You let the free market take over. We just have to remember that no market mechanism is going to create the actual road network that connects everyone, so that's something that governments would have to do in advance. The next interesting real estate example that I want to quote is Powder Mountain. I'm not sure that everyone is familiar with Summit, but it's basically they organize gatherings to entertain ideas, much like TED, but in a very exclusive setting. Their attendees have usually been screened and interviewed to make sure they have the correct psychographic or mindset for events. Insiders call it the Davos for millennials. It's investment bankers, venture capitalists, celebrities, artists, cannabis entrepreneurs, sex coaches, you name it. They're all members of Summit. So how do they have any link with innovative spaces? In 2013, these guys, together with some investors, bought Powder Mountain. It's a 10,000-acre ski terrain in Utah. The investment case was to transform their social capital into real estate. Each investor received a plot of land, and assuming the plan worked, they would get their money back on a future date. But why is this so much different in ski resorts? So one, it brings like-minded group together, which creates a community like our generation craves. But the second, and the important part, at least for me, they restrict anyone from building a home that's larger than 4,500 square feet, and residents must use vetted architects to ensure that the home is subservient to the land in a style also that's called heritage modernism. And this is key. They would want the entire Powder Mountain to incorporate the design follow landscape principle. So now, let's put everything I talked about today together. So I highlighted the United Nations Social Development Goals, which I think is important in any type of real estate development that you would talk about. I already mentioned this, but creating the road network, separating public from private space, and then let the free market take over. So there seems to be a connection throughout all of this and the lifestyle I was describing in the very beginning. On the screen is what our generation deems to be important in thinking of space innovation in general in a functional way. I think in general we need more real estate spaces that integrate all of these. And I just wanted to highlight briefly, for example, these airports: Hong Kong for its design, Singapore for its botanical gardens, Schiphol, which has a library and also has a biking area where you can charge your phone, and Seoul that has robots. Quickly, I know I only have like 5 seconds left. Rosalie Bay in Dominica was entirely by hand over 9 years, and also wanted to highlight our very own Dara in Bukuti. That's the Caribbean's first and only certified carbon neutral hotel. I think there's a lot of lessons to be drawn from all these developments, and my message today is that besides technological and green initiatives, I think the future of innovative spaces will also be shaped to a very, very, very large part or extent by our generational needs for human interaction and community building.